Hello and welcome to No Time to Quest. My name is Jay, and in this video I'm going to be asking the question, is Ashes of Creation planning on having too many classes, and is that actually going to be possible to balance? Now the massive caveat to that is, of course, this game is not even in Alpha 1 at this moment. Therefore, how can we even really talk about this sensibly? Well, I'm not really 100% sure we can, but we do know that they are planning on having 64 class combinations, and that's a lot. So really that's what we're going to talk about, and we're going to look through and, see how this is going to materialize. So for those of you who don't know, in Ashes of Creation, and this is literally on the Ashes of Creation website called Class List, you can have 64 class combinations, and this is actually written down somewhere here at the bottom, all 64 combined classes. Now, when is a class not a class? And why am I asking that question? Because how this is going to work, or at least it's been stated how this is going to work as of right now, you're going to pick your base class, which is the one on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those, right? And then you've got the 8 subclasses, which are basically those same classes combined. So you will pick, say, let's just pick a random example. You will pick a rogue, and then you can pick any one of these. So let's say you picked a rogue and then a bard, you would become a charlatan, right? Now, there's other fun combinations. You can pick a summoner here, and then if your subclass was a cleric, you become a necromancer. Don't know why I said it like that. I am the dancer. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so you can do these class combinations, which I think is one reason and one thing that is actually making a lot of people hyped for the game. Me included. I'm very hyped for the game, but I just try and temper my own expectations every now and then. Now, how is this actually going to materialize in game? You pick your base class and you're stuck with that, right? But your actual subclass, you're not strictly set with that. That will be malleable, changeable, whatever you want to call it. Yes, you'll be able to actually change this subclass or archetype. Now that's good, I think, because it means you don't need to roll 64 characters if you wanted to play them all. But it's also bad in the sense that there's a variety of reasons why it might be bad, but I think one of the big ones will be that people might just pick the best, the one that does the most DPS, the one that is the meta the best, right? Now that's a problem full stop, but there is also the problem of how are they going to... You only have a best if everything is not balanced. And with 64 combinations, I think the chance of imbalance is much higher. If you look at this, and I know this is not strictly the case, but let's say we compare this to, say, like World of Warcraft, which has 12 classes and then 3... they call them skill trees, right? So you could have like a Retribution Paladin, a Holy Paladin, or a Protection Paladin. And you could, in theory, think of this as the same way. You have your standard base class, and then you could look at this as sort of like 8 specs. Because they are changeable, we don't know how easy it will be to change it. I suspect I remember vaguely hearing that it might be like, it's not a switch of a button. I don't think you can just like go in and switch them. You might have to do a little bit of a quest or something to change them, just to fit the lore and stuff like that. But either way, the fact that you can change them means that you're not set to it, obviously, but it also means that people might just be picking the best. And with 64, well, it's actually, 64 total combinations, but each class will then have 8 variants of it, because you can pick the fighter and the fighter, or fighter tank, etc. So I do think maybe that is a lot of, even if you compared it to like World of Warcraft and you said, oh, that's like a skill tree, then World of Warcraft is 12 by 3, which is 36 combinations. This is going to be 8 times 8, which is 64 combinations. Now, the interesting thing there is, if you would have reduced a class Like if you would have just removed one and had maybe like 7 times 7 is 49, so you would have had 15 less combinations just by removing one class. Now I don't know, and I'm not sure if this has been stated, but obviously they announced this in December the 15th of December 2017. If maybe at release they won't have all of these class combinations, because 64 is quite a lot. It's definitely quite a lot. However, it is one thing that I think have got people really hyped about the game. And we also have to consider, when it comes to balance though, that not only is there is also going to be an actual like skill tree involved. Now this is more, I think this is possibly going to be more to do with your primary class, but I think in the latest live stream that they did a couple of weeks back, they did mention that you'll be able to change some of these from like active to passive, and you've got to then factor this in with the class combinations. Like this, well, we can see 3 sort of skill trees there. How that will work, I don't think anybody really knows unless you're a hardcore diehard fan at the moment. But so you're gonna it's basically adding complexity. You're gonna have this little skill tree combined with your subclass basically, and I think there is a very real risk that that's going to be difficult to balance, right? And it's interesting, and I've got some notes. I will have to maybe check my own notes. I do think that people will be inclined to simply pick the best, right? I think that happens in all games. There will be people who are trying to min-max, and I have personally no qualms with that. The key will be if the classes feel different enough. And by the sounds of those, a necromancer should feel different, say, from a minstrel or a charlatan or something like that. So, what I actually mean is, in the same sort of, like, you pick a fighter and a fighter should feel way different, say, like, than a fighter and a mage, a battle mage, or whatever it's called, a spell sword or whatever it's called. If the playstyles per archetype are quite different, then people will be more inclined, I think, to pick the one that like they just enjoy the most. But there will be a section of the player base that isn't really that bothered about, say, the roleplay element of it. They'll just have their class and they'll be like, well, I want to perform the best that I can for this situation or X situation or Y situation, and they will just simply re-roll. Now, it depends how easy that re-roll process is, but this sort of conversation at the minute reminds me of WoW Shadowlands at the moment. There's in Shadowlands, there's going to be like a covenant system, which the designers of the game talked about them being like a subclass choice. However, the player base is a little bit up in arms. They're saying people will just pick the best one. We need to be able to change them in case we want to pick the best one. Blizzard aren't going to be able to balance that system. That's 4 covenants across 36. You could argue that that's actually more combinations, because it would be 36 times 4, and I ain't smart enough to work that out on the fly. So, you could argue that that's adding more complexity, and the Blizzard fans or World of Warcraft fans aren't expecting Blizzard to be able to balance that. And I think, that's why they're having a system of where you can change it and stuff like that. So the Covenant system is sort of like a comparison here you could make, and as I said, people aren't expecting to balance that. And I just think it's going to be difficult for a new developer specifically and that kind of stuff to be able to balance this correctly with that many combinations. But I think they're going to have to try at this point. That when you see that sort of chart with all of the classes in it, it gets people excited. It gets me excited, and I think people are really looking forward to it. I can be a ranger and a rogue and be a scout, or the reverse of that is to be a rogue and then a ranger, a predator. I mean, you just start catering to people. There are people that, I'm a predator, me. But yeah, you can be a tank and then a cleric and be that paladin that we spoke about in WoW. So, some of these names sound so cool, and it really gives that sort of like D&D feeling towards it, and it makes me very excited. I am happy in a sense that you're going to be able to swap between them. How difficult it will be to swap between them, obviously, we do not know. I sort of hope it's a little bit difficult, so you can't just swap them between, I'm going to do PvP today, and then I'm going to do a raid, so I'm going to swap them between. I think it needs to have like the Covenant system in WoW. I think you probably need to have that cooldown to prevent that. But to really make it impactful in that sense. But people will complain if you make it too too complicated and too difficult. Let's say the fighter and the weapon master just pumps out so much more damage than say a fighter and a ranger, right? Well, if you're for both PvP, well, people who are interested in PvP are going to trend towards the weapon master, regardless of the cool like roleplay style and archetype of like I want to be a hunter. So it's going to be a difficult situation. 64 combinations to me is quite high. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in Ash's creation, I am sort of following it. I'm trying not to follow it too hard at the minute because we're not even in Alpha 1. But if you're interested in Ash's creation, do like and subscribe. Have a most beautiful day. Goodbye.